Be it during the action-adventure or in the current RPG era, Assassin's Creed has always put heavy emphasis on stealth. Since the days of Altair, sneaking up behind an unsuspecting enemy and stabbing them in the back has been one of the favorite things players like to do. Somehow this vastly immoral, cruel act has become one of the most lucrative parts of Assassin's Creed. And despite stealth being a key component, it's shocking to me that it took Ubisoft nearly a decade to introduce a crouch button. Talk about being late to a party. Although we could technically do it since Assassin's Creed 3 if we entered a bush. Not that bush. Not that one either. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. It still wasn't as accessible as one would like, and yet for some inexplainable reason, stealth has always been rather satisfactory, even if we were only straight up walking behind people without really trying to be that silent. This proves one thing, that not all conventional things are good by default, but which games had the best stealth, and which era was straight up bleh. Let's find out now. For the purpose of this video, we'll be dividing the stealth mechanics into 4 eras: the Altair/Ezio era, the Kenway era, Rogue included, the Dorian Fry era, and the RPG era. Since during these times the stealth is barely varied from game to game, so it's only fair that we include them in sets to make things a little less complicated. And before we begin, if you enjoy Assassin's Creed content, subscribe to the channel, and if you happen to enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like. It's easy, it's free, support a brother from the Creed. So which era had the best stealth? Let's get into the list. Number 4, the RPG era. Stealth in the RPG era, despite having all the aspects that Assassin's Creed fans dreamt of at one point, just lacks originality and creativity entirely. Clearing out huge forts or garrisons with multiple secret entries, vantage points, hiding spots, and more, with a never-ending supply of weapons and ammunition, and tens of, if not hundreds of enemies to take out in beautiful locations, might I add. Sounds like a dream Assassin's Creed game, huh? With the dreams turn into nightmares when you realize how terribly repetitive and lacking of actual Assassin's Creed elements the games are. There is absolutely nothing that made these games stand out originally here, and the worst part is the developers have tried to rip off ideas from other games with amazing stealth mechanics, and in doing so have made a terrible mistake of letting go of their own legacy. And then when we add RPG elements to the mix, we are left with a concoction that makes old school fans of the franchise go absolutely bananas. For example, stealth assassination only works if you're on a level close to the enemy. I mean, what the hell? So if an enemy is 10 levels higher than me, he or she will survive a blade to the heart and with minimum damage? Does that make sense? Another example is how they've completely eliminated any stakes from the scenario. Your approach, it just doesn't matter. Whether you decide to be super stealthy or just let loose and go into battle mode, it makes little to no difference. And if it doesn't really matter, then what is the point even? Back in the day, going through enemies like shadows was a necessity, and we would feel rewarded when the task was completed to perfection. But now, it's just do what you want, how you want, because it's a democracy thing, which not only is a terrible pivot from the foundations of Assassin's Creed, but stealth itself becomes an exercise in futility since it's a baseless aspect. It makes you ask yourself, why waste 20 minutes on a fort when I can just make it a battle royale and be done in 5? Plain, bland, repetitive, and uninventive. Just a total disappointment. Next, number 3, the Kenway era. During the Kenway era, and may I remind you, Rogue is included here, stealth was a solid aspect. It wasn't the best, but was enjoyable enough and had enough connection to the foundations of Assassin's Creed to be memorable. But there is one huge grievance I have with this period. Although the stealth mechanics themselves were great, there is almost a criminal lack of opportunities to apply said stealth to make it worthwhile. That wasn't always the case though, because in Assassin's Creed 3, there were some great missions that needed you to be as sneaky as possible, like the time when Haytham rescues Benjamin Church, O'Connor assassinating John Pitcairn silently while literally being surrounded by an army. See what I mean? Stakes. The other one. If nothing's on the line, no half synchronization, no desync, nothing at all, then I'd have run straight to Pitcairn and shot him in the face, but would also be left feeling bored at the same time. But in my humble opinion, I feel the emphasis on stealth was greatly reduced post Assassin's Creed 3, because in Black Flag and Rogue, there are some missions here and there where you're needed to be covert, but not only are they few and far between, they are also put in missions where it barely matters, or where it doesn't feel as satisfying at the end. Like the time we assassinated Arevalo and Lawrence Washington as Shay, or the times when Edward takes out the warehouse key holders. That bit just got boring after a couple of times. But the mechanics themselves, I gotta say, were incredible. My favorite parts would be the addition of the bow in Assassin's Creed 3 and the ability to lean on a wall's edge to wait for the approaching enemy or even just not be seen. They're not major changes, I know, but they add layers and elements to the stealth that enhances the overall experience to a whole new level. Although I've placed the Kenway era stealth at number 3, make no mistake about it, it was truly great. Next, number 2, the Altair/Ezio era. The OG Assassin's Creed era with some jaw-dropping stealth mechanics for its time. This is where we did it all for the first time. Ledge assassinations, haystack kills, air assassinations, and straight up cover his mouth from behind and stab him kills. Although stealth here was in its basest form, it somehow did not take away from the rewarding experience. And especially since Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, because if you remember, the inclusion of a crossbow and multi-kill with throwing knives just made the stealth 100 times better. Suddenly the player had enough control over a situation to keep their cover intact while also feeling like a total shadow. There was also some incredible social stealth like crowd blending and bench assassinations, which was so satisfactory while also being challenging enough since you had to get to a certain position first without being detected, which was a task in itself. Stealth really is a tricky thing to get in my opinion, because it's not just about sneaking up behind someone and taking their life. There needs to be multiple layers of challenges where the players have to find a path while drawing no attention to themselves, and at the same time tracking movement and patterns to be able to actually finish off an enemy. The creators made the stealth of this era like a maze or a puzzle, which made the whole experience, well, I hate to be repeating it so many times, but rewarding, because it really requires to concentrate, memorize, and be quick with your choices, because a second earlier or a moment later and you not only expose yourself but also have to go back to the start. I understand that this isn't easy, but RPG stealth is for lazy people who want a quick kill with no consequences if you don't get the job done the first time. It makes perfect sense when we get to understand what makes any experience a great one, and I hope Ubisoft has a moment of retrospection, because they were once at the top of the stealth game, which could honestly be one of the pillars of the franchise, or even the idea of an assassin to be in and out of a situation while being totally undetectable. They've clearly lost sight, but it becomes all the more heartbreaking when we realize how superior the first era was to the current load of crap we're regularly being served with nowadays. And now, number 1, the Dorian Fry era. This is, I feel, where the franchise soared and plummeted simultaneously. It's like the developers almost got too ambitious and were trying out so many new ideas. While some were terrible, like the exclusion of any background music and too much dependence on the visual aspect, they also hit home runs like the parkour and the stealth. I do have a couple of complaints that I want to address first, like the non-responsive keys and the downright stupid hood on or off while crouching in Syndicate. The first one really threw the experience off for me on numerous occasions, especially in Unity, but at the same time the overtly meticulous nature of the stealth made it all worth it in the end, and the hood on or off thing just made the developers look dumb. See, if they did it when the Fries entered a zone that requires stealth, that would make perfect sense, but this just felt gimmicky and unnecessary. And now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about the positives, because there are so damn many. First, the stealth felt like it was almost perfected in these times. Not only did they add the oh so overdue crouch button, they also kept all of the mechanics from the previous eras while adding elements that not only made sense but also elevated the system to new heights. For example, the last scene location indicator, crouch assassinations from corners action, which also includes getting the target's body out of noticeable areas, and my personal favorite where in Syndicate the Fries look for half a second before going through corners. That move just made the stealth so much better. It makes perfect sense too and is clever as hell. Not only does it greatly help to remain undiscovered, it also clearly conveys the idea that these assassins are trained to the max, because that's what the pros would do. Check the corners and scout the path ahead before moving on. See, little details like this make all the difference in the world. And as I said before, layers. And the Dorian Fry era, in my humble opinion, is the only fully developed, true to the core and extremely accurate stealth in all of Assassin's Creed. And with that, we reach the end of the video, guys. Tell me down in the comment section below which era you loved the most in terms of stealth. Also, tell me what you thought of the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Assassin's Creed content like this. That's it for today. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned. It's your boy VZX signing out.